back before we blew it all. Take me back to a place where I felt at home. Take me back to a day when we weren't alone. Take me back to an age when the world felt small. Way back before we blew it all. Too many things going on, I can't keep track of them all. From people dropping a bomb to people putting up walls. I feel like life is on hold, perception stuck in a vault. I know that time can heal all, but how much time till we fall? It's awfully chilly outside when there's no shelter to hide. When everything is a lie, you'll find that out in some time. But when the things on your mind are all considered a crime, communication aside, we'll all just fight till we die. Is this an argument or just the start of it? Either way, I don't wanna be a part of it. Can I just get some space? I don't have the heart for this. I can't be picking up the pieces, fixing scars from this. Is this an argument or just the start of it? I wanna drive away so I can be so far from it. I wanna find a place where no one breaks their promises. Or maybe drown myself in something that is bottomless. Take me back to a place where I felt at home. Take me back to a day when we weren't alone. Take me back to an age when the world felt small. Way back before we blew it all. Take me back to a place where I felt at home. Take me back to a day when we weren't alone. Take me back to an age when the world felt small. Way back before we blew it all. I know that things seem bad, but they could be much worse. There's always someone else who has a greater curse, a greater thirst, a hunger, pain, and mercy. Just find whatever you got and try to be thankful first. I wanna feel again, I need a couple friends. I never really understood just how the story ends, but I can feel it's tense, don't know the consequence. The volatility of life, my only confidence. Is this an argument or just the start of it? Either way, I don't wanna be a part of it. Can I just get some space? I don't have the heart for this. I can't be picking up the pieces, fixing scars from this. Is this an argument or just the start of it? I wanna drive away so I can be so far from it. I wanna find a place where no one breaks their promises. Or maybe drown myself in something that is bottomless. Take me back to a place where I felt at home. Take me back to a day when we weren't alone. Take me back to an age when the world felt small. Way back before we blew it all. Take me back to a place where I felt at home. Take me back to a day when we weren't alone. Take me back to an age when the world felt small. Way back before we blew it all. Living life, every day, late at night, not okay. All I want, and I pray, all I need are some better days. Fuck me, I'm looking in the mirror, so foggy, but I've never seen clearer. I don't really think anyone can save me, and honestly I'm not really sure I want saving. I like to be my own worst enemy. There's no risk if you don't try at anything, so I'ma just keep buying everything. See you in the next life, have to be a better me. I don't think that my head's on straight, gotta flip it and grip it and go and get an x-ray. What's wrong with me? I just feel weight pushing on my chest and it squeezes till I suffocate. Better change my mindset, meditate. It's pretty cool that I'm alive and have better days. I could walk, see, hear, I should celebrate. Think I could change my mind, maybe elevate. Living life, every day, late at night, not okay. All I want, and I pray, all I need are some better days. Yeah, all I need are some better days. Cause all I want, and I pray, I believe in the better days. I'm kinda stuck between between a rock and a hard place. Do I work hard or live at my pace? You're only young once, yeah that's all great, but I also want a future where I'm okay. Living life is doing lots of cocaine. Wait no, it's living with no shame. Wait no, it's sleeping in on Sundays. I guess it's different for each of us and that's okay. Well I just wanna be happy, how to get there? Glad that you asked me. I think it's different for everyone. Some of us need work, others need fun. Some of us need purpose to overcome. But try to do what you love when it's said and done, cause there's so many differences in each of us. Trust your gut, it can show you what you want. Living life, everyday, late at night, not okay. All I want, and I pray, all I need are some better days. Yeah, all I need are some better days. Cause all I want, and I pray, I believe in the better days. Living life, everyday, late at night, not okay. All I want, and I pray, all I need are some better days. Yeah, all I need are some better days. Cause all I want, and I pray, I believe in the better days.
Welcome to the live stream. Hopefully everybody's having a good Saturday. I know I'm having an okay Saturday. This stream is going to be about Bitwarden and password management. Hopefully you guys have a password manager. This is going to go over all different types of password managers, but mostly about Bitwarden and how we are using Bitwarden in our daily work schedule, and as well as our customers are using it to make sure that they keep their passwords protected as well as updated to the most current standards. So I'm going to send out a poll. The poll is going to run for the entire live stream, so you can answer at any point in time. The poll is, are you currently using a password manager? Answers are yes, no, all my passwords are on Post-its. That's the other third option. So ask your community. So here we go. And there's the poll. So just answer when you guys have a chance. I'm going to go straight into Bitwarden here. So I'm going to switch over to my third camera here and put myself over here. And we're going to basically go over how Bitwarden works, how to sign it up, what to do, how to utilize it within the browser, and other stuff like that. So this is basically a total overview of how to use Bitwarden. So let's start with the pricing page first, because everybody wants to know what it costs before you actually go to do this. Now, the regular individual pricing page, which I'm going to bring up here in a second, is free for personal use. Now, if you're not using it for personal use or you're using it for a business, I would recommend that you obviously go to a business platform. But the free one gives you unlimited passwords, unlimited devices, all the core functions, and it's always free. There's always a catch. The free one does not have a lot of the advanced stuff like advanced 2FA, emergency access, Bitwarden authenticator, and security reports and more. For your personal use, it will cost you around $10 a year to run this. They do make the free edition. I recommend you spend the $10 and just go with your premium. They call it premium, but honestly, it's just additional security features which you're gonna need, like advanced 2FA. That's very important, as well as Bitwarden authenticator would also solve a lot of your problems and keep things in the same spot. Yeah, so basically what you want to do is, if you're on a personal account, you would want to choose the one that's pretty much $1. It's not, when I get through this entire thing, you'll see why with 2FA and why it's important. Now, if you own a business, you could go to the business one. The business one is a little more expensive, but it has the option of having employees and managers. Your managers will basically be able to manage all of the passwords in the groups and be able to share those passwords securely between devices. For that cost, it costs around $3 per month per user. If they want to basically go a little bit above that, they can go to the $5 per month per user, and that basically includes some functions that are like enterprise level. Majority of small businesses will probably be under Teams organization, which is $3 per month per user. How does this come out to be? It's really cheap on the end of the aspect of it. The first time that you end up getting hacked, this already pays for itself. So in my opinion, this is also a lot easier than sharing passwords between emails and stuff like that. It's a lot more secure because now you're going across a secure encrypted network, and you're not actually sending it through something that's unencrypted that could be potentially snuck upon or hacked against. I say hacked, but it's not really even really a hack. It's just sent in clear text, which, you know, any person that has a sniffer on a network could obviously pick that up. Or even if they could catch it in between, going between one mail server to the other mail server, it'll be in clear text, and then they could read that password. It's the same reason why we don't send credit card information through email. Is the same reason why we don't send passwords through email. You don't want to be doing that. So This solves this problem. And I'm going to go through each part of Bitwarden. This is just a pricing page, but if you go over to business, and for a business this makes sense very heavily, but for even for people for personal accounts, most people could probably still stick with free. That's still better than your browser, passwords and stuff like that. At least you're giving yourself some better security. The premium, again, you get more of the advanced features, which is your 2FA, which is really what you need. And for $10, it's a cost of a lunch for the entire year to help yourself keep protected. They're not expensive. And if you have a family, it says up to 6 users at $3.33 per month. That's 6 premium accounts, unlimited sharing, unlimited collections, and organizational storage. If you do have a family and you want to share your passwords between devices, or if you have little kids and stuff and you want to share the passwords for Google or something like that, or even Apple, let's say you have a iCloud account and you want to share your videos and your music with somebody else, that'll allow you to do that securely without having to worry about your password getting hacked. Again, same thing. You could also store your Netflix password, your Hulu password, all of that stuff all on one account for all your devices. So let's get started with the actual password manager. I recommend that you at least purchase. I'm going to go over all the features, but the main features I'm really going to go over the 2FA, how to set up an account, downloading of it and installing it into your browser, how to also review adding any passwords that you want in the future to your Bitwarden login, also how to choose a password, etc. So that's like the overall view of this, but I'm going to get started on 2FA first to give you an example of why you would need 2FA. Two-factor authentication, which is 2FA, is going to protect your account because you need to have this on, because this is where you're storing all of your passwords into one area. If you don't have 2FA on, you're going to have a very bad day if someone guesses your password to your current password manager. Now, this is if you're using Bitwarden or whatever password manager you want to use. But to enable 2FA, it's really simple. You just basically go into your settings of your Bitwarden account. When you go to set it up, it'll also ask you if you want to use 2FA. They have different options. They have SMS, they have Ubico keys, and they also support authenticators like Google Authenticator and stuff like that. I would recommend, if you don't have a Ubico key, which the Ubico key would be the easiest method, but if you don't have one, you could use the Google Authenticator. Google Authenticator will allow you to at least have 2FA based off of your phone. That is better security than SMS. SMS is your last resort. SMS is a text message, if you don't know. So an SMS message can be intercepted before your cell phone, so therefore it could be considered a hackable component. I would recommend that you stick with something like Google Authenticator, or I don't know what the one for LastPass is, but there's one for LastPass as well. Bitwarden also has its own 2FA authenticator, but it's recommended that if you're going to be protecting your Bitwarden account, that you don't use that authenticator, because you won't have access to it until you get into it. So I would use something like your phone or something like that, where it's also a secondary device. The reason why you want a secondary device is because if you have a primary device as your main authentication, it's still the same thing as just having a bad password. Just in this case, you just have 2 passwords, so it doesn't make any sense. You're better off picking something that's a little more secure by having a secondary device that has that. We did show Google Authenticator last time, and to use it, you just download it from the Google Store, which you can download from either the Play Store or from Apple. By the way, even if you have an iPhone, you can still use Google Authenticator, and that will work across multiple sites as well as Bitwarden itself. On the App Store, it's really easy to install. You just go to this on your phone, you hit install on your device, and it will install a little app that shows basically these little authentication keys. That is basically time-based security. So in other words, it's not SMS. Those codes change after this little pi counter counts down, and it'll give you a new number. That new number is based off of that specific key code that you've entered for that specific site. Bitwarden would have its own label on here when you go to set this up. When you set it up, it'll ask you to scan a QR code. You just scan it really quickly after you hit the add button down here. It'll ask you, do you want to add it through a QR code or through entering like a little password thing? I would recommend you just enter it through scanning the barcode. And you can, by the way, you could scan your, you could scan the monitor that you're on or whatever. If you're opening up a Bitwarden account on your phone, I probably don't recommend that. That's a little harder to do, but you can do it if you really wanted to. And you could just copy and paste the code number for that Google Authenticator account. Once you've added it to Google Authenticator, that number, now your account is secured by 2FA. You'll be asked every time you add a device to enter that 2FA code. There are more advanced options you can turn on that would be a little more annoying, but they are more secure. And that's saying to always ask for that 2FA code no matter every time you log in. It gets kind of annoying because if you're going to use this as your password manager, you might be annoyed by that because then you have to enter your password and then you have to enter the 2FA every time. I would recommend that you authenticate by device and just authenticate that device, so you only have to enter your master password and then you're authenticated on that device. Now, if you're adding a new device, it'll ask you for that authenticator code. That's the most simplest setup. I wouldn't go any more advanced than that. If you leave it more advanced than that, you're going to have a hard time getting back into your password manager every day, especially if you use that as much as I do. If you have to log into 50 different accounts, you're going to have a bad day if you have to keep entering that 2FA all the time. So just basically realize that set it up so that you have 2FA enabled, but just authenticate by device. And that's default, by the way. So you don't have to go to the other one to advance those options. The other thing that you may want to do is that just a little thing off the top of my head is that anytime you add a device, it also emails you to let you know that a device was added to your account and someone was accessing your device, accessing all of your account information on a new device. It'll tell you like basic location of where they are, and if something goes wrong, you can lock down your account with one click on that email and say, hey, that wasn't me. And then your account gets locked down, and then it'll also remove all the devices and ask them to all relog back in using your current username, your current current email, current password, and then the 2FA authentication as well. So this is the better way of doing things, just in case, so that you have everything in one spot. If you have employees and stuff, the business side is a lot better, because at least this way, if you add or remove an employee, you can remove an employee from the business side, and it'll warn you that when you remove an employee, to change all of your passwords on all of your sites, because at this point they had access to XYZ passwords. And by the way, it will keep track of who had access to what, so you know what passwords you need to change. This also helps your IT company if you don't want to go do that. It would help your IT company to know which passwords that employee had access to, so that at this point they can go in and change every password manually. It is a time-consuming process. Bitwarden does help you out by, whenever you go in to update your password, it will also ask you and remind you that that password is now out of date. Do you want to save the new one? It'll automatically update that. It'll also automatically update all the current employees' passwords so that they have the most current password. You don't have to walk around the office and give everybody the new password 16 times. This is a much secure way. This is very, very simple. It's all digital. All right, moving on. How to set up in Bitwarden, getting used to. Okay, so basically to sign up an account, it's very simple. I'm going to use personal for now. You would either hit create free account or create a premium account. And let's just do create premium. It's going to ask you for your email address, your name, your master password, which you'll have to enter. It'll ask you to enter it twice. For your master password, I do recommend 12 characters, letters, numbers, characters, and symbols. Now that's a lot to remember. If you're having a hard time choosing a password, we also have a password generator. that allows you to generate passwords that are a little easier to understand or remember. Now, don't get me wrong, these are like still 12 characters with letters, numbers, characters, and symbols. If you want to make this a little simpler, you don't have to include symbols. You can take that out and you can get a little bit simpler password. But the more simple the password is, the easier it is to either guess or type through. Now, Bitwarden has an auto lockdown feature. So if someone accidentally enters your password, I think about 3 times on the website, or I think it's 10 or 15 times on a device, it'll automatically lock that account down and will not allow that person to re-log in. So there is some sort of lockdown procedure, which is a lot better than most other password protection. So again, we're back to this thing of, I would still recommend a more advanced password, but you could go a little bit more simpler password if you're going to use 2FA. Because if you have 2FA, you're almost guaranteed your account's not going to get locked out. You have that other option of not being able to do that. Someone says, I just use the same password for them all. And then he put his password there, which is funny. And he put, Russians have yet to break it. Well, yeah, that one, okay. I mean, yeah, don't reuse passwords, by the way. I didn't even put that on my list of things, which actually it's a good reminder. Don't reuse passwords for like different websites. That's how you get hacked really easily. Yeah, I by the way, Jason, I think that password might have been pwned. I'm pretty sure. That's just like literally 1, 2, 3, 4 with, you're saying in the front of it, and then with the little exclamation. Actually, what did you just go along the top row? Anyway, you put shift and went along the top row for 1 through 4 and 1 through 4. Hey, if it works and you're not hacked it, I guess it's okay. So yeah, by the way, don't reuse your password for multiple sites. You want to make sure that you use a unique password every time. And that's why we're using a password manager. So you don't have to remember all of this stuff. It's just all stored in one spot. To give you guys some screenshots here, let me get, if you want to go through this, require this, you can always check this. There's also the terms of service, your privacy policy, if you want to read all that. And when you sign up for this, you can also sign up the free one first, see how you like Bitwarden, and then buy the more advanced account if you want to. You don't have to. Again, you could also just stick with the free one. The free one is actually pretty good, except for the fact that it doesn't offer 2FA. So if you're going to go free, definitely set a more advanced password for your all-around password, because you don't have 2FA enabled. So that's going to be really bad. So, maybe a 12-character password or a 16-character password with some letters, numbers, and symbols. It should be fine. By the way, Jason, your password does meet the requirements. Scary enough. You did have a capital letter, you did have numbers, and you do have symbols. So, but the only problem is that you kind of broke one rule, and that rule is that you made it a personal saying. So, someone could guess that. So, well, now definitely everybody's got it. So, anyway, so basically moving on, you want the premium. I would recommend for $10, go with the premium and get the 2FA protection. But, if you want to just try it out, try the free, and then go premium when you're ready to go premium. And then if you have a family, go with the $3.33 per month. Gives you 6 users. That's insane. And it's only $40 for the entire year. So, if you have kids, this is probably the best way to keep all of your stuff nice and secure. Now, the only problem is if you're choosing families, or even if you're choosing business, just be careful who you're sharing passwords with, because the minute you share it, they have access to it. And it does warn you that when you share a password with another family user, that they will have access to that password. They can see the password, they know what it is, and they'll have tons of access to it. No one in the right mind. Okay, no one in the right mind is going to type that in. They'd be acknowledging my amazement. Yeah, pretty much. Moving on. So then the Yubico key, the 2FA. Okay, so basically after this, after you set something up, you want to download the Bitwarden plugin. This is the plugin up here. I'm not going to unlock this because I already have an account associated to this. So I'm going to show you guys some screenshots. But To install this, you could just go down to the downloads page, which I'm going to have in the link, by the way. So you'll have all of this information down below in the description. And when you want to download, you can just basically download choosing the version that you want. I would, you don't need to download the desktop edition. The desktop edition is kind of nice, but it's not necessary. You could just use the web browser one. The web browser one shows up in your browser in the top corner here like this, and it says Bitwarden, and it'll ask you to log in. After you've logged in, it'll come up with a different screen, which I'm going to show you in a second. With your web browser, just choose the browser of your type. If you have Chrome or Firefox, if you have Safari, fine, or Edge. I don't think many people use Opera, Brave, Vivaldi, or Tor browser either. I don't know many people that use those. But the biggest ones, Chrome, Firefox, Edge, Safari, those are the big four, that most people use. If you want to put it onto your phone, you also have the availability to do that. You can just get it on Google Play, or you can scan that QR code and it'll also bring you right to it. The command line one, most people don't use. The command line one is just basically for programmers, so I doubt any of you are doing that. If you guys are doing that, you could check out the documentation on how to use that. Access Web Vault. The Web Vault is just the web browser version of it, so you can actually just see it on the web if you don't want to use the web browser portion one. This is the one that goes right to the website, so you don't need to install a browser to be able to get to access to your information. So, after you've got that all signed up, what you're going to do is you're going to now go and you will go down to, let me open up screenshot one so you guys can see what it looks like. I saw something here. Someone said they need retinal scanners. So my screen is so blurry today. They need retinal scanners for personal PCs. They actually had, getting a little off topic, they actually have something like that with a webcam. It doesn't scan your retinals though. What it does is it scans your facial features. And it detects, if you have a good enough webcam, it will detect a lot of facial features about your face. They tried to do this on ID.me, and they tried to do it for tax purposes. And I'll be honest, I think it's a little bit of an invasion of privacy when you get to that point. So, I think that's probably why they removed it, unless it's still up there and I'm just not sure. But the last time I checked ID.me, I don't think it requires you to have that when you log in. I think that's a little overkill, honestly. But, 2FA I think is more than enough. 2FA is pretty decent for security. It's not impossible to crack, but it is certainly a lot harder than just a regular password. So let's go on to shot one. When you log in to Bitwarden, you'll be greeted with this kind of screen. It'll automatically put all of your credit cards that you've saved, your identities that you've saved, your logins that you've saved. This is obviously a temporary test account. That's why you see everything is blanked out. You'll also see that you have a search vault on top. Search vault on top will allow you to search the entire vault really quickly, and it'll allow you to find a password that you may be looking for. Now, whenever you go to a default website, let's say you go to Google, because this has a Google icon, we'll just use that as an example, it will present you the options that you're already on. So in other words, if you're on Google, it'll say, hey, I have 3 logins for Google. This is an example of that. And say, which one do you want to autofill in? It'll let you select that fill, and it'll automatically fill it in on the website. Now, if you're not sure which one to go with, it will display here, which is missing the actual login information, like the username, not the password. If you want the password, to the right there's a little password key. You can click on that. That will actually copy the password to the clipboard. Now, sometimes that's a bad idea. I would recommend you use the autofill when you can. Copying it to the clipboard means that it will stay in your clipboard until your session has been either removed with another item that you've copied to the clipboard, or it may remain in there for a while before you have to clear that. I would recommend that you use the autofill. The autofill does not require the clipboard at all. It doesn't use the clipboard. It just integrates right with the browser, and you don't have to worry about that. Anyway, to the left is view. This will allow you to view the item that is for that login. If you want to look more into the record and you're not sure which one it is, you can do that. The center one that looks like a little user is the username. If you click that, that will copy the username to the clipboard. And the one all the way to the right, which looks like a little time clock, that's if you're using Bitwarden as your 2FA for another site. So if you're using Bitwarden's authenticator, you can use that here. Now, a little bit of advice here and a little bit of warning. If you decide to use the Bitwarden 2FA, which will make your life a lot easier for all other sites, it is a problem because anybody that gets into your main account can now access all of your accounts because they already have the authenticator code right there. So this will kind of circumvent the 2FA on other sites. I would just be careful with this. If you want the most amount of security, use Google Authenticator for your 2FA or use a Ubico key for your 2FA. Not use this Bitwarden Authenticator. The Bitwarden Authenticator is nice for like a business where like there's a lot of 2FA on most websites. Microsoft is a good example. If Microsoft has, let's say, you know, the boss really doesn't do all of the email addresses or the sign-ons for new employees. They need 2FA on their account, but maybe another employee might need access to that 2FA and they don't want to have to keep asking the boss for their cell phone every 2 seconds. This is a solution because sharing that password with that other employee gives them access to that 2FA little clock. I keep pointing this way and it's actually pointing that way. See, that's weird. Anyway. So yeah, so basically this just be very careful with. If you want to do this on your own, you can put those in, but you're kind of defeating the purpose of 2FA at that point if you're using it for your personal accounts, because they have access to the main one, they're going to have access to this. Now they have also credit card information. If you want, you could store your credit cards in here. That is encrypted. By storing your credit cards in there, you could also share your credit card. This really helps with businesses a lot. This also helps with families. If you actually trust your kids to use a credit card, you can share a card with them and share that information securely. That will also autofill for any type of websites, which is nice too. So if you're at, let's say, you know, Amazon or something, or Newegg, or wherever you're buying something from, and you're going in there and purchasing something, you can have it autofill that credit card in for you every time instead of storing the credit card on that one site. It's a little simpler way to enter stuff. I would also be very careful with this. I would not probably share that with a lot of people. I would probably keep that, you know, just to yourself. Down below, there's also identities. Identities is just like your address, your telephone number, stuff that you have to keep re-entering on websites. It'll automatically save all that information. Well, you could save, I shouldn't say automatic, you have to enter that information, but it will automatically input that information. If you're doing a fill-in form, you can go there and say, okay, select my identity as my home address. You know, it'll automatically fill my home address for, let's say if you're shopping for something, or even if you're just filling out a form online and you just don't want to keep re-entering that stuff, you could click one button and it'll fill it all in. By the way, it will not submit the information, it will just fill it out for you. So it's not like Dashlane. Dashlane is another password manager. We used to test with that one. Dashlane used to be a real big problem because you would select an identity and it would fill in all the information and then submit it for you, but you still had other information that you had to fill out on the top or something, and that was a really bad experience. So this is a lot better experience. It just fills it in and lets you submit it, and it also gives you an opportunity to double check something or make more changes to it. Security question, okay. I'm sorry, I'm just reading my notes just to make sure I got the right thing. Yeah, so if you press this little plus icon also at the top here, this allows you to add another website manually, but you could also add a website without doing it manually. So in other words, if you enter a password at any point in time and you have Bitwarden open on your browser, it'll ask you on a little bar at the top over here, it will ask you right at this bar, it'll pop up right underneath your main bar, and it'll say, do you want to save your password that you've just entered for this site? If you hit save and yes, it'll automatically enter all the information that you've entered in that form into Bitwarden so you have it. Now, little bit of a heated warning, it will not save your security questions. You have to enter those yourself manually, but it will save passwords. So if you want to enter security questions, you would enter them under that specific item. You would edit that item, and then you would allow you to put it into the secure notes area. Let me go to the next screenshot so you guys can see that. When you add an item, this is what comes up. This is a very long form. Ooh, a little too close. There we go. It's a very long form, and it'll ask you first the type, which is just a login. There's also some other selections like, you know, if it's an app or whatever, it'll give you features on that. If it's just a straight-in login, which is mostly what typically it is, you can enter your name, your username, your password, your OTP. TOTP is basically your 2FA authentication code. If you're using 2FA and you want to use their authenticator, you would copy that code into this one section. When you enter it in there, it's like a very long, cryptic, like looking code. So if you want to use that, you could copy that and paste it in there, and it'll automatically start generating those codes for you. Just like how Google Authenticator generates codes, it'll also do the same thing. I'm going to show another screenshot very shortly with the actual TOTP, and you'll see what it looks like when it counts down. URI or URL1. This is basically the website that you're on. So, example, like it has google.com, but this would be any website that that you're logging into. You can basically also have two URLs with different. Well, they call it URI, which is weird because it's a URL. But two URLs with different, same password, but different areas, right? So you could have that basically listed here if you really want to go that complex. Most of the time, you're going to have one entry there, and that's going to be for the site that you're currently on. You can click the little settings icon here, which is this little settings cog. That will bring up an option to allow you to choose different type of URLs that you could save with. So if, let's say, you have an account, you have a login for accounts.google.com, but you also have a login for like google.com/workspace, but they're two different logins. You could specify a difference between the two. Majority of the time, it's going to come up with both, because the default will come up saying anything google.com will automatically show both. Sometimes you may not want both. That's when you go into the settings area. It's a little more advanced. You'll probably never have to use it. Folders. Moving down to folders. It says no folder. If you have folders set up, you can set up folders of passwords so you can group them. You can say, okay, these are all my family passwords. These are all my business passwords. These are all my whatever passwords. So you could also favorite a password. If you favorite it, it'll automatically, every time you open up Bitwarden, it'll show up at the top. Master password reprompt. That's an option which is kind of unique. I don't know if LastPass has this one, but master password reprompt basically means that if you are going into this site and you are selecting this to log in, it will automatically, if this is checked off, it'll automatically, before it fills it out, it will ask you for the master password again before it'll allow that to fill in. That is good for password, like if you leave your computer on and you leave yourself logged in a lot, and you have people around, you can actually lock down every password this way if you want to have it reprompt. But if you're going to do that, you're better off changing it in settings if you wanted to always reprompt for a password. You don't have to do this. You could also just sign out of Bitwarden too, or just close your browser. It'll automatically sign you out of Bitwarden anyway, unless you have it automatically saved. Notes area, this is usually where I store all my garbage, like security question answers and stuff like that. It's still encrypted. You could also create a custom field that's just called security question 1 and have the answer for security question 1, 2, 3, whatever it is. You can add those fields that way, or you can put them in the notes. I'm lazy, I put them in the notes because it's just easy to get at them. And I also use security question and answers that don't really mean anything. So if they ask me like, what was your high school mascot? I'll put something totally arbitrary in there. That has nothing to do with my high school mascot. And the reason why I do that is on purpose, because that information can be easily obtained. You know, anybody can know that I went to XYZ high school and that's my mascot. All right. And especially the mascot that I've had, it literally is like everyone's mascot. So, you know, not a really good security question in my opinion. I would make sure that you use weird, crazy answers. You know, whatever the question is, just don't answer it truthfully, answer it with some crazy thing. Just copy and paste them into the notes area. Or you can make a custom field for each one if you really have the patience for that. Ownership, this is usually filled in with your email address down here of whoever owns the actual password or login for that. It's going under that specific person. If you want to share that with somebody else, or you want to have somebody out, or if you're filling out, let's say, the passwords for your kids or something, you can change that ownership to the kid if you want. But if you change it to the kid, then the kid has all of the access to that. Same thing with employee. If you change that access to an employee and that employee is no longer there, that will become a problem. You'll have to change all those ownerships over. That's really confusing. I would recommend you just keep it under the one that you currently have. Once you're done here, you just go to the top and then you click save. By the way, this is a very long form, but actually you would scroll through this. You probably only answer about half of these. You really wouldn't answer all of this stuff. Most of the time, people stick to the top and they won't make it really past about here, you know. So they would stop at the folder area unless they need notes and stuff. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, so under URL, they have some other different options. They have default match detection. This is if you click settings. This is an advanced option. Most of the time you'd leave it on default match detection and it'll probably be fine. But I wanted to go over this a little bit on the two different types. Base domain means that it'll match anything that says anything to the right of the domain. In other words, like google.com. That's to the right of the domain, that's your base domain. Your host is directly anything to the left of the domain. So if you have like something like www or accounts.google.com, that's your host, is your accounts. It'll match that. Starts with kind of along the same thing as host, but it's a little bit more flexible. A regular expression, I haven't seen anybody use a regular expression in here, but if you're doing that, I think you would know what you're doing at that point. You don't really need me. Exact means that it exactly matches whatever is typed in the URL area. I never really use that unless something has a conflicting password that's kind of like conflicting website that's kind of like really, really close. And then there's never. Never option is pretty much kind of like your exact option, but it just the opposite way. It'll just match to almost anything. So I would never choose that. But those are the advanced features of that. I just want to go quickly over it. I didn't want to spend too much time on that because honestly, most people will just use the default match detection and move on. So this is basically when you log in, you get a list of your, you know, on the regular tab here called the Vault. This is the tab, the one that says tab, which is weird, but the one that's called tab is the one that comes up with like your credit cards, your identity, all that stuff. You could also set under settings which one you want it to go to right when you open it up. Most people reset it to Vault because it makes more sense. Like the Vault one is what I usually set it to. It'll give you your logins, your cards, your identity, your secure notes, your folders, your collections, and your trash. Now, collections usually has whatever collection you're currently under. This is obviously grayed out because it was a test account, but it was grayed out. But this would actually show the name of that collection there, and it'll show how many passwords are under that collection, which in this case had 39 passwords under that one collection. Collections, when you're using a business side of it, collections are usually used for grouping a bunch of passwords together and allowing employees to access that entire collection. That's easier than saying this employee has access to this employee has access to that. That takes a long time. Where a collection, you could just say, okay, here are all the business passwords that every employee needs access to, or here are the ones that accounting needs access to. So you make a collection called accounting, and accounting would have all the access to all of those passwords. You make one called shipping, and they'll have access to all of the like UPS, FedEx, and stuff like that they need access to. I would break it down by department usually, but you don't have to go that crazy. If you have a very small company, there's no need to do that. You could just make one collection and then share everything across. Trash, obviously, if you delete something, it goes into the trash. Even if an employee deletes something or a family member deletes something, the only person that can really empty the trash is the main user. So you, just in case if someone decides to go really angry at you and delete all your passwords, you don't have to worry about that. You could still get them back. Logins are just basically regular logins. Card is your credit cards. Identity is the locations, or like if you have like default fill-in stuff that you normally fill in, that's identity. Secure notes are just basically a straight note. It has a subject and a main note field, but they are secure notes, so at least they're encrypted. Moving on from this, you could also add something up to the top of the right, and you could also break this out of the browser by clicking the thing on the left. If you've also noticed, they made a separate thing called all vaults or separate vaults. You can separate down your vaults based on like what company and types if you really want. I don't really use this. I just use collections because this gets confusing with the vaults and most people don't know what it is. So we just go with collections. Next. Viewing an item. This is basically, this has your name, username, password, but this also shows your TOTP. If you notice, there's a little countdown clock. Normally the code would be right here. I have grayed that out, but there's usually a code right there that shows, and then basically when this countdown hits 0, it'll be a new code. So that's your basically your like Google Authenticator. It's kind of the same thing, except it's part of Bitwarden. Website. Website is the website that it goes to. There's autofill, and saved and delete item. This is viewing the item, by the way. So I don't know why they changed that from URL to website. They should have just labeled the other one website. I don't know why they did that. That's kind of confusing. So anyway, website basically means that's the site that, you know, it's covered under, and this would be listed right below it. And you can also click this icon here to launch that website and autofill it in. So if you want to go quickly, let's say if you're paying your bills and you want to go to, you know, whatever bill that you have every month, you could, let's say electricity, you were going to PSE&G, you would click on that, it'll bring you right to PSE&G, right to the web page, and it'll start filling everything in. It will not submit the information though, so you still have to hit submit, unfortunately. But in one way, I guess that's better than nothing. You could also delete that item. If you have multiple passwords saved accidentally and you only have one that's the correct one, you can go in there and edit and delete that. If you hit edit on this, it'll bring you back to the other screen with more information, allow you to fill everything in. So that will bring you back to that. But this is just for viewing. You could also click on this little, looks like two little paper icons. That is copy. So this will copy to the clipboard. So anything on the right side here will copy to the clipboard. If you want your username copied to the clipboard, password, or the verification code, you can click those and click copy. We will put it to the clipboard. If you want to view your password, you can hit the little eye icon and that will show you your password. And the little check mark, I think, is the automatic fill as well. So I think that just autofills. But no, the check mark, I think, actually says if it's like a secure password or not. If there's something kind of like, it'll recheck that password. And if it's like kind of unsecure, you'll see an X there. But yeah, from here you could easily copy your information or go right to the autofill. Moving on to the next one, the other option is create new send. Now this is under here. That's this send icon. So if you want, you can send your password out to somebody that's not using Bitwarden. There's a lot of warning here. You could also send a file, by the way, too, securely if you wanted to. This is only also offered on, I think, the pay per options. I don't think you can get. I don't think this is offered on the free. What you can do is you can send an encrypted link over to someone for opening that encrypted link and being able to receive either a file or text. This is a way of sending a username and a password to somebody that is not on Bitwarden. You have to be very careful here. The default options I am not very happy with because it kind of says, oh, you know, you could create a send item, send it to somebody, and there's no expiration. That's what falls under these options. If you're going to use this, you want to look at this screen and open up that options tab and change up a lot of options. You want to, if you want to select text just to send someone a text information, you can do that. You can also send down share, you know, it says save this copy link to clipboard upon save. I would check that if you're going to send it through an email, that's fine. Deletion date, don't ever leave the default at 7 days, put that down to 1 hour. This should not be something that stays around and is active through a link for more than 1 hour. Honestly, even 1 hour is kind of long. You can set an expiration date for like 20 minutes or 30 minutes from now or whatever. You can do that if you really wanted to. I also recommend that maximum access count you set to 1. So it only gives them 1 chance to open it correctly, and that's it. If you want, you could also password protect it. I would recommend you password protect it, but if you're sending someone a password, that kind of defeats the whole purpose of this. So you may end up not having to really use that. I'd probably not. I'd probably just set it as nothing and then just send this off. This is not a very secure way of doing these things. I would recommend that you use another Bitwarden account and then allow them access that way instead. This is kind of really a bad way of doing things in my opinion. So use this sparingly if you really want to use it. If you have to just get something over to somebody really quickly, but again, set this down to expiration of at least 1 hour, so they only have 1 hour to open up that email and then read this. I'd also change the maximum access count to 1, and the reason why is because if they open it, that also destroys the link, so they can't hit refresh on the page. So at that point, if someone else tries to open up that same link, they're not going to get it. This also ensures that the person that gets it actually gets it. So when they get that link and they open it up, let's say they don't get that link and somebody else, like a hacker, opens up that link. At least this way they can't reopen it again. So when the real person goes to try to open that up and they don't have access to it, they're going to call you and say, what's up? And at that point, at least you know your password has now probably been hacked and you probably should change that. So again, be careful with this. This is something that is not 100% secure in my opinion. So, you know, I would recommend you stick with actual Bitwarden and send to send on Bitwarden instead of sending it this way. Moving on next, the generator. They have a password generator. That's this icon here on here. This will allow you to password generate a bunch of different types of passwords. I usually recommend that you choose password and then passphrase and the number of words that you want to choose. If you want a crazy password that you're not going to be able to remember, then choose the regular password and do like really crazy capital letters, include numbers and symbols and all that stuff. That will make it so easy, so impossible that no one can really guess it, but it'll also make it very hard to type. So if you have to manually type this, like in other words, like let's say you have a Hulu password or a Disney Plus password or something. Usually this has to do with devices. And you want to enter that on your TV, you're going to have a hard time if there's a lot of weird characters. So I recommend you choose like 3 words, put some capitals, put some numbers, and maybe keep the symbols to a minimum, because the symbols are going to be really hard to type on a keyboard on, you know, on the TV. So again, it really depends on what you're using it for. If you're only going to be using it for autofill on a website, go crazy. You know, you don't have to go to this easy level. You can make it a little more complicated. Settings area. Okay, this area, there's a lot to go over here. I don't really want to go over all of it because honestly, that's a lot of advanced stuff. It's basically also all the same stuff that we went over before. It's just the defaults for whenever you go into something. So the biggest ones that are really the biggest ones that stand out are the Vault timeout, which says on browser restart. That's the default. If you want to have it ask you for a password every time you open up Bitwarden, then you can do that. That is kind of annoying. I think on browser restart is good enough, but you could also set it to say, okay, every time I click that little icon for Bitwarden, it's going to ask me for that master password again. You could also change it to say that it keeps you logged in forever. Now, there's a little bit of warning with this because when you select that, it's going to give you a warning. It's going to say, hey, if you select this, this is going to save your encryption key to your device or machine. This is really bad in the aspect that if you lose that device or machine, it will compromise your encryption. So you're gonna have to go back and reset like all your 2FA. You know, like let's say you had it stored like that on your laptop and your laptop got stolen. For whatever reason you would set that, that's pretty stupid, but you could do that. If that happened and your laptop got stolen, then you would have to reset your password, reset your 2FA. You would have to also reset your encryption, and I'd probably also update all your passwords, because by the time that person is taking your machine, they could have easily exported your passwords before then. So that would be really bad. Unlock with PIN. You could also do a PIN number. That's another easy way of doing things, so you don't have to type in your 12-character password every time. That would only work on this device though. So that PIN number will only be saved directly to this device. But it will also still store your encryption key. So again, your password will be stored somewhere within that encryption key. Unlock with biometrics. If your laptop or whatever, most laptops have like at least a fingerprint scanner. You can have it, you know, unlock with your fingerprint. No retinal scanners yet, so you know that's not an option. But I mean, if it ever comes around, that'll probably be around. You can also unlock with Windows Hello, I think, with that. I'm not sure. I have to double check. I think Windows Hello is supported. Maybe I should look this up. Bitwarden support Windows Hello. Okay, it does support it. Yeah, you could do it. I mean, yeah, a new feature you can put your finger on. You could either use your finger. Oh no, it's saying Touch ID. How does... Google. Yeah, if you guys are using Windows Hello, I guess you could still use that as a regular password. But yeah, I would probably stick with the fingerprint anyway. Windows Hello is, I mean, it's not available on every laptop either. So it's available on most new laptops, but a little older laptops where the webcam doesn't support depth features, it will not support Windows Hello. So it needs to know that, you know, it's not a picture of a face. It needs to know that it's an actual face. So it looks for that depth. And if it doesn't have that depth, it won't authenticate. Lock now, that's just basically an option. If you are walking away from your computer, you want to unlock, you want to lock the browser without having it to come up, and it'll let it just ask you for your password again, your master password again. It will not log you out of 2FA unless you have that specified as saying you want to log in with 2FA every time. Two-step login, this is just going to bring you to the website. That'll bring you to the website to enter your 2FA information. That's about it for settings. Everything below that is about account information and some other breakdowns. That will allow you to do more stuff, but again, you're back to this thing of like, it's just setting a default for whatever you're looking to do. So my suggestion, definitely get some sort of password management. You know, you don't have to go with Bitwarden, but Bitwarden is the least expensive and it is one of the best ones out there. It is the easiest to use. It doesn't require, you know, a rocket science degree to figure it out. The plans are very cheap, and it is available on almost every OS, I think, available except for Chrome OS. But if you have a Chrome OS, you could just use Google Chrome and use that web browser build, you know, that plugin for that, and it'll allow it to still show up here. So even if you have a Chrome OS book, I know that Chromebooks have been very popular among education. Basically, students have been really doing that because of the low cost of the laptop. So it does support it. You just have to use the Google Chrome browser. You can't support it directly native within the program. I don't think unless... Nope. No, it's not that. It's just more options. But yeah, so cost-wise, not too expensive. It works really well. If you want to know about other competing products, you know, if you really care for looking around, there's LastPass, but they just got hacked and had some problems. So again, so that might be another issue that you may not want to go down that discovery path. They said nothing was really stolen, but they did steal like a bunch of like source code and stuff, but that doesn't make much of a difference. It doesn't mean that they stole your passwords or anything like that. So it's still secure. LastPass, there's Dashlane, but Dashlane I believe is very heavy on the browser. It also does a lot of automated features which I don't like. What's the other one? Oh, you could also use the ones that are built into Firefox and Chrome. I don't recommend those. There are password managers in here. You know, if you go to that, those password managers that are built into your browser, they're not secure. They don't require a password to export your passwords. Like, they only require the Windows password, which is, you know, and if you don't have a Windows password, you can actually export all of your passwords in clear text. Yeah, so not the best solution. And on top of it, a lot of hackers have figured out how to get that to do that without even being at your computer. So it's kind of scary. So if you're saving your passwords in the actual browser, you know, with, like, let's say Chrome or Firefox or whatever you're using, and you're saving your passwords directly in the browser without using something like Bitwarden or LastPass, you have a really big chance that your stuff is going to get stolen. I would recommend that you switch to Bitwarden, export your passwords, delete the passwords from your browser, and put it into Bitwarden or something else. Because if you have your passwords in there, you're going to end up with a real problem when it comes to people just being able to steal all your information. And you really don't want that. So, yeah, so basically, move on to Bitwarden. I think that's probably your best choice, or you can go to LastPass or something else. But remember also, still, all your password manager is your, like, first level of keeping everything organized. Your second level of keeping your protection is still your 2FA on every website. And be sure that your 2FA is set up for Google Authenticator or a Yubico key. Do not use SMS. But again, I know we went over this in, like, previous videos, and I've said it 3,000 times, but I'm going to say it one more time, and that's basically SMS and text messaging can be hacked. It is not your best solution. Your best solution is something like a 2FA device, which is like your Google Authenticator or your Yubico key. By the way, you don't have to choose Yubico either. Google makes a key too. I don't know what the hell it's called. Yeah. It's just Google key. Yeah. Titan. They call it Titan. So, you know, if you want one of these, you can get one of these too. This is, you know, this is supported pretty much everywhere as well. So if you want one of these, just don't get one that's Wi-Fi enabled. I think they got rid of the Wi-Fi one. Yeah, they got rid of the Wi-Fi one, which is good. So, you know, it only uses NFC, which is fine. So, yeah, you can get this or a Yubico key. You know, Yubico keys are really good too, so they're really easy and simple. You don't have to go crazy. Yubico, I think, is cheaper too, I think, compared to Google. I think Google was more expensive, right? Nah, about the same price, $25, and one for $38 with a Wi-Fi thing. Well, it's NFC. You know, little options. Yeah, so that's basically it for you know, Bitwarden. I'm sorry, Bitwarden, and all of the security that you could basically use. Let me just check my notes if I missed anything. No, settings page was it. So if you guys have questions, please leave them in the comments below. Please say in chat if you have any questions now, or forever hold your peace. And we'll see you in the next one. Basically we have a system build coming up this week. That is Tuesday. Might be Tuesday. I'm gonna check. Tuesday. So we have a live build on Tuesday at 5:30 p.m. That's a live build for another customer. Actually, it's a 2-computer build, but we're only building one on stream. It's the same exact machine. And we should have some videos coming up next week as well. And we also have probably a review on the Apple event this week coming up on Wednesday. That event is out at 1 o'clock, so we'll probably have another video out probably the 8th with a follow-up on what the new Apple stuff is. So if you guys are into Apple stuff, you might want to watch that. That's coming up soon. stay subscribed for that. We will be updating. We'll be sending out emails. We will also be sending out notifications on Google on everything that's being posted, including new videos. Yeah, hopefully you guys can like and subscribe. Be sure to subscribe, because when you subscribe, you actually get more of the notifications. We do send out the email ones, but some people have been saying that the emails have been hitting the spam box. So I apologize about that. We're figuring out a better solution, but in the interim, Google does send out the notifications when we are on stream. Also try to hit that little bell to say that, to be notified when we are on live stream. And it will also notify you when we do upload a video finally. So yeah, like, subscribe. We'll see you in the next one. If you dislike, be sure to hit it twice. All right, see you soon.